Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Los Nietos School District's Special Education Virtual Town Hall. Buenas tardes y gracias por acompañarnos en esta junta comunitaria virtual dedicada a nuestros alumnos de educación especial. Para nuestros padres de familia, les queremos hacer saber que esta información estará disponible en español y la puede encontrar en la página web del distrito escolar, que es lnsd.net. Allow me to introduce our speakers who will provide welcome remarks. Our district superintendent, Mr. Jonathan Vasquez.
And thank you for joining us tonight. I know a lot of parents have had concerns about what the virtual distance learning program for our district is going to be for their students. We really wanted to take this time this evening just to specifically offer some suggestions, offer what our plan is to best support your students. We've gotten a lot of feedback from our parents. We learned a lot from when we first started this last March. So we wanted to share that information with you, try and ease some anxiety. We'll let you know this isn't the last time you'll hear from us. As we hear more about your concerns and what your needs are and what your kids' needs are, we'll find the best way to communicate with you, whether it's through the principal, through it's having another meeting to answer your questions, phone calls, emails. We know we need to think outside of the box to answer the questions that you have for your kids. So please know we're here to support you. We will do our very best to answer the questions that you have. And thank you again for being here tonight.
And our Director of Special Education and Pupil Services, Mr. Raymond Tan.
Good afternoon, Los Nietos families. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us this afternoon. And we understand that during this pandemic, it has been challenging for our special education students with regards to how they will be able to continue receiving educational benefits in the distance learning format. We understand that parents have a lot of questions and concerns about how they can support their students. So it is our hope that this evening we will be able to provide you with information on what the services and the supports that we're providing to our students and how we can work together and as partners to support our students together and to also answer some questions that you may have regarding special education and distance learning.
Thank you both so much. At this time, we will move to the presentation portion of this event. We will begin with Mr. Vasquez.
We want to talk about here's what it will look like in a distant learning format, number one. Number two, we want to talk about the program structure. We really want you to have an understanding that in order for our kids to be successful, we need to have it structured. It needs to be very dependable. Kids don't like variability. And with our special needs students specifically, they need to know what their day is going to look like. So we want to ensure that we put something together to provide the best structure that we can for our kids. We then will talk a little bit about what related services your students might have, whether it's speech, whether it's adaptive PE, occupational therapy. How are they going to be receiving their services? Some of you have children who have not only a teacher, but they also have additional service providers. How will you get in contact with them? How will you find out what the schedule is? We'll talk about that. All of our students will be receiving an IEP this year. We're going to talk about how the Zoom meetings will take place, how we're going to ensure that we meet with every parent, that we ensure that we meet every child's need that is being expressed by the teacher and the parents, and together collaboratively come up with an IEP individual education plan that really addresses the needs of the student during not only this pandemic time when they're doing distance learning, but when they get back to school. And lastly, we've been receiving questions since last week when we asked for them. So we wanted to give time to answer those questions to those parents who wrote in and asked specific questions about how some of the things will be implemented this year. So that's a little bit about what our program will be tonight. So with that being said, we'll go to the next slide. So again, You as parents, myself as a superintendent, the teachers definitely know the best way to help our students learn is to have them in the school, is to have them learning, is to have them having the repetition from 8 to 2:30. That is the best way for our kids to learn. Due to the pandemic, due to the governor's order, Los Angeles County is one of those counties that is not able to have students come back to school at this time. That's why we're doing this distance learning program. The distance learning program, not only for general ed, but for our special needs students, ensures that we provide the instructional minutes necessary um, for them to make appropriate growth, and that it mirrors as much as possible what it would be like if they were in school. That being said, I know, and you know, again, that the best way for our kids to show the growth that we want, to show the progress that we want to see them have, is to make sure that they are in school. So we are watching what the health rates are and the rates of testing positive within Los Angeles County. But because our county is so large, it's going to be very difficult for us to get down to the required minimum in order for students to come back to school. So in order to ensure that while they're in distance learning, the things that we are doing are meeting your children's needs. Again, we've made sure that we have a structured program that we're offering with both synchronous and asynchronous learning. And what that basically means, we want to make sure that when you Zoom or you're one-on-one, it's real-time learning. And then we're also going to be giving you some work to do offline. That's the asynchronous learning. We're also going to ensure that the learning that your children are receiving is the same learning that a general ed student would be receiving. We're all using a Zoom platform. We're using Google Classroom, and we're providing information there so you can very much keep track of what your children are doing. One of the things we want to assure you is that we are noticing when your kids are in school. We're noticing when your kids aren't in school. It's imperative, it's important that you have your kids show up every day to school. That being said, I know that within the Los Nietos Whittier area, there's been power outages. I know that there have been times when um, this week, as a matter of fact, and across the entire country, Zoom went out and everyone was scurrying around trying to figure out how best to support kids because the Zoom platform that everyone has been using in schools went out. When things like that happen, please don't fear that you're going to be marked absent. We know that you have difficulty. Just call the school office, let us know what your issues are, and we'll be able to correct those for you. Okay. We don't want you to worry that because of power outages or because um, you're having difficulty logging onto something, just communicate that with us so we can help you with that. We want to ensure and strengthen that our school to home connections is much stronger. So again, one of the things that we implemented this year is ensuring that every day there is a office hours for parents to make appointments and talk to parents and get their questions asked with regards to Zoom, with regards to how students are learning. I know that it's very difficult for parents to understand. That's why we wanted to have a consistent time every day for parents to sign up and get their questions answered. And there is no one better to answer the questions about how your children are doing in the classroom than your special education teacher. So we want to make sure that we provide those supports for you. We've also provided, again, we thank you for the questions that you've been asking the principals, asking Director Tan, that you've been asking myself. We will get back to you as soon as possible. I know that we're thinking of different ways outside of the box to communicate with you. We had some children show up today to register, or this week to register. It was the first time I had seen a child in quite some time, and it was quite a bit of excitement here at the district office. We want to see kids. That's our business. We want to be educating children. We want to see your kids, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we can't. So again, we're trying to figure out ways, how can we reach our kids and make sure that you see your kid's teacher every day or the special education assistant, that you have the ability to talk to the service providers, and that if you have questions that need answering, that we provide that to you. Lastly, again, not only have we been providing professional development to our employees, we're also looking to do that for our parents. We know that got lots of feedback. The parents say they're not teachers. Going through a Google Classroom, going through a Zoom is difficult, especially when the platforms don't work like it did this week when all of Zoom went out. So we are setting up ways to ensure that we can communicate, that we can talk to parents, and to ensure that we can answer specifically the questions that you need. Some parents may need help learning how to Zoom, how to get into Google Classroom. So we are working on providing that level of support. I'm working with our SELPA, which is all of our special education districts in the Whittier area. We work together to do parent education classrooms. I have volunteered. I was a former director of special education and school psychologist before I became a superintendent and a principal in this district. So I have a lot of expertise with regards to special education, but I also know what kind of concerns parents have. So I'll be working on that. And when we have those special education classes open for parents, we'll let our parents know, and we'll invite all of the Whittier parents to come in and get that training as well. So we are finding different ways to help support our parents through this pandemic time. So with that being said, I go over the specific programs and service providers. I want to turn it over to Director Tan at this time.
All right, so I would like to start with the elementary RSP program. And before the pandemic started, typically the RSP support is being provided by pulling students out of the general education classroom for that support. And during the distance learning format, it's going to be a little bit different. We understand how important it is for students to remain in general education classroom as much as possible, because the purpose of RSP is to provide support to the general education curriculum. And as such, students will attend the live Zoom sessions with their general education teachers and peers as scheduled. They will not get pulled out of RSP for support, but rest assured that they will still get the RSP support outside of the Zoom sessions. So when they meet with the RSP teachers and or instructional assistants, they may be working on continuing the general education assignments. They may need the information to be broken down, to chunk into smaller parts, or they may need certain concepts to be retaught to them to help them understand. And that's when RSP will be able to provide that support. And with regards to the minutes that the RSP will be seeing the students, it will vary depending on what's been stipulated in your student's IEP. Some students receive RSP support in both ELA and math, some just ELA or some just math, and for 30 minutes a week or 60 minutes a week. So it all depends on the unique needs of the students, but the minutes will continue to be met during distance learning. So the RSP teachers have been working really hard this past week to plug in the students to schedule the Zoom meetings. They want to make sure that they are not being pulled out during the live Zoom sessions. And they also need to make sure that the students are not being double booked by, let's say, a speech pathologist and RSP teachers at the same time. So that's what they've been working on collaboratively as a team to make sure that they're able to come up with a master calendar and schedule for their students. And they will be starting the RSP services next week, Monday, August 31st. And they will be contacting parents to let them know the days and times that the students will be receiving their RSP support, right? And next will be the elementary mild to moderate special day class programs. So for this program, we will continue to provide small group live Zoom sessions, both in ELA and math. That's a primary focus. They will receive at least 30 minutes in ELA and 30 minutes in math with their special education teachers and special education instructional assistants. But they will also be working on science and history and social studies during the live Zoom sessions. So the teachers are working really hard to group the students based on their developmental and academic levels so that when they're working in the smaller groups, their needs can be met accordingly. And our instruction assistants are providing the support during the Zoom sessions as well. So for example, the teacher may be doing a whole group instruction, and then after whole group instructions, they will be doing breakout rooms into smaller groups so that can really focus on the academic materials that they need the students to learn. And that's when our instructional assistants will come in to provide that support as well under the supervision of the special education teachers. And we understand that parents have a lot of questions and concerns about the structure of the program. So as such, the teachers have held a parent orientation meetings during the week of August 17th, just to go over the specifics with the parents with regards to the structure, the format, and the schedules of how the services will be provided. Okay, next, with the elementary moderate to severe special day class program. And we understand that their needs are very different than typically developing peers. So while we are continuing to provide some small live Zoom sessions, but the live Zoom sessions will really tailor to the unique needs of the students, because we understand that their needs are very different and it may be challenging to meet their needs through virtual learning. So for the past 2 weeks, they have really been focusing on getting to know the families, getting to know the students, getting to know their needs, and just helping the parents and the students to establish the routines. So they're doing different things such as circle times, working on weathers, days of the week, read aloud, and icebreaker groups, and also social emotional learning. And after this month, the focus is really going to be the unique needs of the students. What do the students need? What are their academic needs? What are the functional needs? What kind of goals they need to work on? So they will be more individualized with regards to live Zoom sessions. They will be able to provide a lot more one-to-one sessions to target specifically on your students' IEP goals, because our SDC Mod Severe classes are much smaller. So we're able to provide that individualized attention to our students. And we will also be providing a lot of parent training and support. And we understand that in order for distance learning to work with our moderate to severe students, we really need you parents as partners, and we need your help in supporting our students. So they want to give you that training and the support that you need, so that you have the skills to be able to assist your students, because you know your students best. And together, we will be able to make this work for our students. And it takes some time, but little by little, we will be able to see some progress, and students will be able to benefit from the distance learning format. Okay. And with regards to the middle school program, so of course, it's going to run a little bit differently than the elementary programs. With the RSP, SDC, Model programs, they will receive the ELA and the math support provided during the Zoom sessions. They will have the same schedule as their general education peers. And the difference is that they will be receiving the support through the special education teacher and or the instructional assistants. So we continue to utilize the instructional assistants to provide the academic support that the students need. We realize that just by having the teachers providing the instructions, it may not be enough or adequate support for our students. They need the extra support. That's when our instructional assistants will come in. They work under the direct supervision of their special education teachers. So they will be engaging in a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning. And with regards to the SDC moderate to severe programs, and the focus is fairly similar to our elementary programs. We understand that their needs are very different, and it can be quite challenging. So the live Zoom sessions are going to be tailored more to the developmental and the unique needs of the students. And the groups are going to be much smaller, and it can be done individually or 2 students in a group, depending on their goals and their levels. So we will be devoting a lot of one-to-one sessions with the family and the students to really work on their academic goals and also their functional goals. What do they need in order to continue to make educational gains in the program? And there will also be a lot of parent training and support built into the distance learning format. So the teachers and the instructional assistants are available to support the students, and teachers can provide training to the parents. And it may require a lot of work for the parents in order to make the distance learning work. But please rest assured that we will start with what your student is able to do and just build from there and little by little. And the teachers are a great resource. So please continue to maintain good communication with your teachers. So that is basically the overall academic programs that we are providing to our special education students. And next, I want to talk about our related services. So how it's going to be provided. So first, I like to talk about the speech and language therapy program. So if your students are receiving RSP support or only speech support, and rest assured that they will continue to remain in their general education live Zoom sessions. They will not get pulled out of speech or RSP. And instead, they will receive the teletherapy via Zoom sessions outside of the live Zoom sessions. And again, that's because we do not want our students to be pulled out of general education environment unless it's absolutely necessary. And for SDC students, and they may receive the speech services during their Zoom sessions with their SDC teachers if appropriate. A lot of our SDC students do have the language needs, and many times our speech and language pathologists can support the SDC students in their ELA goals or language goals. So if that's the case, they may receive the speech service through the SDC live Zoom sessions, or they may receive it during the breakout sessions when the teachers do the breakout rooms with their students. Or the speech pathologist may feel that it is necessary to do the teletherapy outside of the SDC live Zoom sessions. It all depends on the unique needs of your students. And the teletherapy sessions provided by the speech pathologist can either be done individually or in group sessions, depending on the needs and the goals that the students are working on. And our speech pathologists have been working really hard to develop a master schedule. And as I have said before, we do not want to pull students outside of their general education live Zoom sessions, and we don't want to pull our students during the RSP sessions. So it does take a little bit of time and coordination to make this work. So that's what they've been working on. And they will be contacting parents to let you know when they're going to be scheduling the Zoom sessions, and you will receive the Zoom link as well. So you will know when, what day, and what time do your students receive speech services. And next is our adaptive physical education. So this is for students who receive adaptive PE because of their gross motor needs. They may not be able to perform the general education activities, and we all know that students will continue to engage in general education during distance learning. And because of their disabilities, they may not be able to perform the typical activities as required by the teachers. So that's when the APE teacher will come in. They will provide the online weekly schedule and with the links to different materials for activities. So instead of engaging in the typical PE activities, they will design different types of activities that the students can engage in that will still meet the needs. And there will be a weekly parent checkout slips provided to the parents so that you can provide feedback on how the students perform on those activities. And they will continue to open a line of communication with parents so that parents can provide feedback on how their students are doing with regards to different types of activities. And if they need the support on helping the students to perform the activities, that's also where the adaptive physical education teachers can come in to provide the help and support to the parents. With regards to occupational and physical therapy, the delivery model will be the same as speech and language services. The primary goal is to provide the services through teletherapy sessions, and they will be contacting parents to schedule the therapy sessions. And again, we are working on developing a master schedule so that students will not be double booked for any sessions, and that the students are not being fatigued by having to receive a lot of services during any single day. So they will be contacting the parents very, very soon, and you will be notified of the days and times. And with regards to related services, if you feel that it doesn't work for you for that certain days and times, please communicate with them, and they will be more than happy to work with you And there's definitely some flexibilities there. It is not set in stone. They will want to make it work for the students and for you as a family as well. So please do not be afraid to reach out to them and to really have that line of communication with them. And we understand that during the pandemics, the social emotional needs of students are much greater. And because of that, we are implementing a district-wide social emotional learning as part of their live Zoom sessions. Our school psychologists have worked diligently to develop a curriculum for the teachers to be able to implement. And we will continue to do that so that the students will continue to receive that social emotional support. And once we all understand that if their social emotional needs are not being met, they cannot focus on the academics. So that's what we want to focus on, to make sure that the social emotional needs are addressed so that they can really benefit from the academic support. And for our school psychologists, they will continue to provide the support to students and families. They have a wealth of information with regards to mental health, behaviors, any community resources that may be available. So if parents are needing support from the school psychologist, they're more than welcome to contact the school psychologists. They're assigned to their schools. And in a little bit, I will be sharing the contact information. So they're a great resource. And so please make sure that you utilize their skill set. And they will continue to provide check-ins with the families and students as needed to make sure that the students and the families are being safe during this pandemics. And with regards to the IEP meeting, we realize that it is mandated by the law that we hold the IEP at least once a year. And because of the legal mandates, we will continue to hold the IEPs through the Zoom sessions. So it will be virtual IEPs. And during the virtual IEPs, all the components of IEP, for example, the progress on the goals, proposing new goals, accommodations and modifications, types of services, they will all be discussed during the IEP meetings. And the case managers will contact the parents to schedule the IEP meeting. And a Zoom link will also be emailed to parents so that you know when you need to log into the Zoom to be part of the IEP meeting, because you are an important member of the IEP team. And at this time, we will also continue to conduct assessments. And this is going to look a little bit differently because we are not able to provide in-person assessments as of now. And we will be conducting the assessments through Zoom and also through alternative methods such as records reviews, teacher interviews, and parent interviews. So the format and approach will be different than the traditional in-person assessment that we are all familiar with. And the assessors will be in contact with the families to explain what that assessment will look like and what type of information they will need to gather from the teachers, from the parents, and from other service providers. So they will be giving you, the parents, opportunity to talk about how the assessment will look like and to answer any questions or concerns that you will have with regards to conducting the assessments virtually. And as I mentioned before, I like to share this, the contact information with the parents, and we will also put that information up in the website. And for any questions or concerns, you are definitely welcome to contact me at the district office, and I have my email address and my direct extension. And I also have a community outreach facilitator with me, Christina Varela, and she has a wealth of information with regards to mental health and community resources. So if you need any specific resources or referrals, you can definitely contact Christina Varela, and I have her extension and email address as well. And for the school psychologists, we have 2 school psychologists servicing the 4 schools that we have in this district. Ms. Maydanger is assigned to Nelson and Rancho Santa Gertrudis Elementary Schools, and Ms. Monica Salazar is assigned to Aileen Elementary School and Los Nietos Middle School. And the best way to contact them during distance learning is definitely through email, and I have their email address as well. So please feel free to contact them, reach out to them. They're ready and able to provide the support that you need.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez and Mr. Tan. We will now begin the Q&A portion of this evening. We'd like to thank our community for your participation and for submitting questions. We will now begin. Our special education children have not interacted with children their age in months, which will affect their social skills upon returning to school. I'm worried my child will get punished because their social skills and boundary knowledge has regressed. What will LNSD do to address these regressions and to help with their transition back to in-person learning?
The social emotional learning of all of our students are very important to us. And we realize that all of our students have not been around their same age peers since March when we initially went to a distance learning program. One of the things the district has done was provide a day of training to all of our teachers, all our 80 plus teachers in the Los Nietos School District, general education and special education, to look at a social emotional learning curriculum because we realize that in order for students to come back into school, to come into a new classroom with new peers and teachers possibly, it's going to be difficult. So we wanted to establish within the first week, first 7 days of school, specific social emotional learning lessons to teach kids how do you interact, how do you ask questions, how do you share feelings, how do you be part of that community, part of that village. We wanted not only for our general education students, but for our special needs students as well. Most definitely, when the pandemic ends and we have kids back in school, whether it's a hybrid program or whether it's full time again, we realize that all of our kids will be experiencing difficulty just getting acclimated. Because once they come back to school, it's not going to be coming back to school as usual. They'll be wearing masks. They'll have to go to a smaller classroom. They'll need to go to recess and do all these things differently. There'll be so many different things that students will need to learn in order for them to come back to school and be safe and make sure that everyone else is safe around them. So we realize that students are going to have difficulties and we are planning for that. So 100% when kids come back and they experience any difficulty, it's our job to show them how best to be supported, how best to learn how to interact with their same age peers, and most importantly, how to learn the new protocols that'll be in place, not only for the students, but also for the adults as well.
When will IEP meetings begin and in what order?
So the schools are working really hard on scheduling the IEPs with parents at a mutually agreed upon day and time. So the schools are hoping to start the IEPs in September. And ideally, the goal is to really schedule the IEPs chronologically based on the due dates. So, for example, if an IEP is due in August, then we definitely would like to schedule the IEP first before we schedule any IEPs that are due in September, for example. However, there are always going to be exceptions based on the availability of the team members and some of the team members or parents may not be available for the proposed day and times. So we may have to push it back later. And some IEPs, we may have to push up a little bit also because based on the availability of the team members. But the goal is really to try to schedule them and hold them chronologically as much as possible.
Will IEP meetings modify goals that we will be able to accomplish at home due to our child's regression?
Sure, that's the main priority of any IEP that's scheduled annually. We want to ensure that we take a look at where students are at, make note of the progress that they've made, and any regression they might have had. We want to assure that we write the goals appropriate for um, to show appropriate growth for the students. Because we're doing a lot of our learning at home, that's something we're going to definitely keep in mind for our parents. We want students to be successful. We want to write goals as if they were in school. We also definitely need to take into account that when students are at home, they have to rely on their parents a little bit more. So we want to ensure that the parents understand what we're asking of the kids to learn and provide the parents the support that they need to be successful in working with their students at home.
I don't feel that there is enough support and resources for LNSD parents with special needs students being offered. Instead of being directed to a website, is there a hands on alternative that will be offered?
Sure, we realize that when it comes to special education students and their unique needs, there are definitely a level of support that they require. And we know that it's impossible to address all the resources and the supports that our parents and students will need. And we did, in fact, put some resources up on our school website, and it is based on the most common resources that parents are looking for. And this is an additional resource for them so that they can always go back and reference it too. And it is by no means an exhaustive list of the resources and referrals that we can provide. And if you feel that the resources that you need or the referrals that you need are not included in our district website, by all means, please contact my office, and my community facilitator, Krishna Varela, has a lot of community referrals and resources, as well as mental health resources that she can provide to you based on what you're looking for. And the school psychologists are also a good resource to ask when it comes to mental health resources. So please contact them or contact me either through telephone calls or through emails. And once we know the specific needs of your students, then we will be able to point you to the right direction.
Will the school psychologist have check in calls with families? Will these be kept confidential?
The school psychologists are available not only for special education parents, but also for general education parents. Any parent who feels that their child is experiencing any emotional issues or behavioral issues, concerned about the regression of being inside, um, having difficulty adjusting, and want to talk to the school psychologist, all you would need to do is contact them. Again, at the end of this presentation, we'll put their emails up. But again, if you just contact your child's school and ask that your name and number be referred to the school psychologist, the school secretary, or the principal can make sure that happens. The school psychologists are there to provide not only support to the students, but also to parents. So, like Mr. Tan was saying, if you need any referrals or need to know where there might be uh, other opportunities for help for your children, we can provide that either the school psychologist, Mr. Tan, or at the school with your teachers. So, yes, the school psychologists are available for consultation as needed.
Why is LNSD addressing special education students last? Their speech and or occupational classes require scheduling.
On the contrary, when the pandemics first started in March, we recognized that the special education students have the level of unique needs and support. And it is very important that we continue to maintain that connection with the families. So I actually have my office place phone calls to special education parents on different occasions. So, for example, they've been receiving phone calls with regards to their technology needs, whether they need to schedule an appointment to come in to pick up a device. And they were also being contacted to make sure that they have connected with the teachers and with the principals. So there's several phone calls have been made to special education families at the beginning of the pandemics and throughout the rest of the year last year. And we'll continue with that effort. We don't want our special education students to be lost in the process. We want to continue to provide them with as much support as they need. And yes, we understand that they need to schedule their occupational and speech classes, and it does take some effort and some coordination to make it work. It is not impossible. It just takes a little bit of extra work to make sure that the schedule will work with all the service providers, with the students, and with the parents as well, so that parents and the students do not feel overwhelmed, and that their schedules are even out throughout the weeks so that they can proceed at their optimal level and be able to continue to make educational gains in the program.
Will physical education classes be included in the special education curriculum?
All Los Nietos students will be providing physical education activities for the students because we're not physically there with the children. It's difficult to do that, but most definitely we're providing opportunities for the students to exercise, to work on those skills, gross motor skills that they would need to work on if they were at school. On our website, we provided information for our teachers, curriculum that will help teach the kids in a distance learning kind of model. But really, it's going to rely on us providing opportunities for students at home, providing those opportunities to practice at home. But for extended opportunities, really, it's doing those physical activities when they're not online. So we will be providing gross motor PE activities for our special needs kids. As Mr. Chan mentioned, for adaptive PE, if you have specific physical limitations that require an adaptive PE teacher, we will be having the adaptive PE teacher meeting with the parents and scheduling opportunities so that their goals written in their IEP can be met, and they can get their required physical activity, not only through the meetings, but also by sharing information with skills building that they can work on at home with the parents.
What accommodations will homeroom teachers be making for special education students for distance learning?
We definitely want to continue to provide the accommodations that the students need, even during distance learning. So the accommodations are very different depending on the needs of the students and their disabilities. So for example, a frequent breaks for a student during distance learning may mean that the parents will need to take the students out to run around the backyard for a few minutes before coming back online to continue with their Zoom sessions. And so if that's the accommodations that the students need in order to help them to remain focused and to continue to learn and make academic progress, then that's what we will provide. So there are a lot of different ways that we can accommodate the students' learning styles and their needs. It's very important that you as parents maintain that level of communication with your child's special education teacher and the service providers who provide the support to your students, and they will be able to come together as a team to discuss what accommodations will be appropriate or needed for your child during distance learning.
Will the safety plan and safety school manual be modified for special education students and students with IEPs? Is there a safety plan and protocols tailored to IEP students or special education students?
Every school in the state of California is required to have a safety plan that is approved by their school boards prior to March. And what that typically does is talk about what's the earthquake protocol if there's an earthquake. What if there's a someone coming on campus? How do you get out an active shooter drill? Things like that, as well as additional training for the staff. Usually, with regards to um, outside protocols and training the nutrition assistants plus the staff on um, how to best supervise students during the unstructured time, such as nutrition or lunch. That's something the principal will go over with them specifically during um, their staff meetings. They'll have regular meetings with the nutrition assistants, go over where specifically strategically to put kids um, or put adults to monitor the students. We do that at all of the schools. With regards to any student with special needs who has an IEP, if it's written into the IEP that they require special observation or special support, we will provide that to the students to ensure that they are supervised appropriately. Oftentimes, that's not written into an IEP, so students who need support, if we know about that, we will just incorporate that into our normal supervision schedule. So the teachers, the assistants, will just keep an eye on the students. But again, those students who require special supervision will have that written to their IEP, and that will be provided.
Are there any tutoring and in person, hands on accommodations for special education students?
We definitely want to continue to provide the accommodations for our special education students, but because we are not seeing the students in person, we're providing the support through distance learning. So it's going to look a little bit different with regards to in-person and hands-on accommodations. So for example, if the students need a multiplication chart in order to do math problems, we can either provide that multiplication chart online if the students are able to access that chart online, or the students, because of sensory needs, they may need to hang on to that chart physically in order to help them through it. And if that's the case, we can definitely send home the multiplication chart. And with that accommodations, we will teach, the teachers will be teaching the parents on how they can provide the accommodations. So how are they going to be able to help their students in using the multiplication charts at home, or how are they going to help their students utilizing the chart online? So our teachers will be assisting the families in providing that accommodations. And we understand that there is a great concern with the students' academic needs. So that's why there's a built-in intervention hours schedule in the afternoon, and that's when the students will be able to get the additional support. And we also continue to utilize our instructional assistants to provide academic support, mainly through the breakout sessions under the direct supervision of our special education teachers, just to provide that students with the level of support that they need so that they can continue to progress academically. So this is and will remain our focus during distance learning to make sure that the students are making satisfactory progress on their IEP goals and in their academics overall.
And our final question, will these students still be required to take standardized tests? If so, will they have access to speech and occupational therapists to prepare?
Our students will have access to the materials they need to complete any test that's required of them. As Director Tan mentioned, with those students who require any level of testing for annuals or 3-year evaluations, currently we're scheduling to do that remotely. So as we get closer to the IEP dates and we get closer to assessing students, again, we're going to have to look at things a little bit differently. We'll be doing more interviews with the parents to get a good baseline of how the kids have been progressing academically and with their language. Teachers will also be, providing interviews with how the kids have been performing, so we can get again that baseline of how they're doing. But having kids come to school right now, new guidelines have recently come out, and we're looking at that. Things will be determined by the level of the ability that the Department of Public Health allows students to be back on campus, that allows the adults to interact with them. So we're following those guidelines closely. They change almost weekly. But currently, right now, we are planning to conduct those assessments remotely in a Zoom fashion and using additional questionnaires to get the information that we need to see how best to support our kids.
This concludes the Q&A portion of the town hall. We will now have Mr. Vasquez and Mr. Tam provide closing remarks. We will begin with Mr. Vasquez.
Again, parents, I want to thank you for coming tonight and for providing us the questions that you have about how um, you have concerns and how you want to know how we're going to provide support to your students. We understand, especially our mod severe parents, that distance learning is not the best way for students to receive the education. I know that, you know that. We want the kids to come back to school. So we are monitoring closely, determining when LA County comes off of the watch list, when we may have the opportunity to start looking at our hybrid program where we can start bringing kids back to school. We know our mod severe students are the ones who need that physical contact, that one-on-one, that level of support. So as soon as things um, become a little bit more uh, able for us to provide that level of support, we will let our parents know. But right now, we want to assure you that the program that we've come up with, either with our mod severe or mild to moderate programs, is as much as possible equivalent to what they would be receiving if they were in the school. We're utilizing our instructional assistants, utilizing our teachers. We are utilizing additional resources with our after school program, the Boys and Girls Club. where we're looking at ways that they can support our kids through homework help. And that will look like it will get started in September. So once we have that kind of figured out with our Boys and Girls Club, we will let parents know, because all parents at the school site will have opportunity to take advantage of those levels of support. Additionally, we know that parents are not teachers. We know that trying to figure out a Google Classroom, trying to figure out Zoom is frustrating. It's difficult. If you have multiple kids, it can be maddening to try and do that on a good day, let alone when there's a power outage or when the Zoom platform goes out. So we're trying to figure out ways to best support you. And again, I would just say the best way to do that is to give us the feedback. Talk to the principal. They are the first line of defense. They are there. Talk to the teacher. You have access to them every day. If you need to, talk to the principal. Mr. Tan is available, and I will talk to any parent, but because I'm not at the school site, all I can do is try and refer you back to the parents or try and get you in contact. But if you need to talk with me, I'd be happy to speak with you about how I can best support you and your kids through this distance learning time. So again, thank you for spending your evening with us. I hope we were able to provide some information to you. Please respond back to Mr. Tan, either through phone calls or emails, to say, okay, here's some other information we need, or we need this kind of training. The more the opportunities we have to figure out how we can help you, the better we can develop those programs to help support you through this time. So again, thank you for being here tonight.
And Mr. Tan?
And thank you all the parents for spending the evening with us. And I understand just how challenging it is for our special education students to engage in distance learning. And I don't want to minimize the impact that the pandemic has on our special education students. And we know that we will continue to have questions and concerns, but we are all here for you. And it is a lot of trials and errors as we go along. We may not have all the answers that you need, but we will definitely look into the answers for you and to get back to you so that you feel that you are part of the team. And that's what we want, to have a partnership with our families, because we couldn't have done it without you, the parents, for support. And regardless of how difficult it is, and I want to assure you that we have an amazing team of staff members. Our special education staff members are all willing and able to assist with you and to help their students, support the students in any way possible. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us, to your students, teachers, and to your principals and any service providers that provide services to your students. We will be able to provide you with the tools that you need and to help you to work together so that your students will continue to benefit throughout the distance learning phase.
Thank you both. This concludes our special education virtual town hall. We'd like to remind our community that enrollment is still open and you are able to register your students by visiting lnsd.net. We thank you all for joining us and being part of this conversation. Have a good night.